Okay, welcome back to part 2 where we're going to rebuild the AC1. So first we need to make sure that the standoffs match the holes in the back of the motherboard. If you leave one in, it doesn't align and potentially that could short something on the back of the board, so make sure the stanchions line up correctly. Next we're going to fit the Noctua fan. This is the extract one, so there should be a little arrow on top of the fan which shows which direction it's flowing, so that's designed to extract. Next we will fit the bracket for the CPU cooler onto the motherboard. This is the Noctua NHU9S. So first we need to fit the plate to the back of the motherboard, which supports the weight of the CPU cooler. When looking into purchasing the right cooler for this case, it's quite a shallow case, so you have to watch what selection you use. This one was designed for like mini ITX cases, so I think it's just 95mm, so that gave me the correct clearance for the case. So screw on the brackets. In fact, put the CPU in first and align the triangular corner with the triangular mark on the motherboard. The CPU is a i7-7700K, that's 4.2 GHz. It's got 8 meg cache on it. It's a LGA 1151 socket. The motherboard is a Asus Prime Z270K. The reason I chose that one originally was because it had PCI sockets and PCIe sockets. Next we're going to put the thermal compound onto the CPU. I normally try and spread it so it gets a thin, even layer. You don't want to put on too much, or just enough to lightly cover it. And give it a little wiggle just to smooth it out. And screw it into position, ensuring it's evenly tight. Next we'll fit the fan to the radiator, ensuring that it's the correct way. You want to suck air in and push it through the fins. Next we're going to fit the RAM. That was a Corsair Vengeance RAM. It was a DDR4. And it's 4 8GB sticks to give you 32GB. Then we're going to fit the M.2 drive. That's a NVMe SSD 960 Evo Samsung. Then we're going to fit the Be Quiet power supply. That is a Pure Power 10, I think, and that's the 600 watt model. And screw the motherboard down.
take me and shake me, awake me. The tears dry from my eyes. You take me, forsake me, and make me feel no pain at all.
Just make sure all the screws are tight, but I wouldn't tighten them all at one go. I'd leave a little bit of slack in case you need to align it correctly. Next I'm going to put in an Akasa USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C panel. The thing that annoyed me about this case previously was there was no front connections for USB. So although this gives me two USB 3.1, the Type C won't work at the front because there's not a Type C header on the motherboard. There's only one built into the back panel, but it might do for future upgrades. I think on some of the more modern AC1, where there is an audio jack on the front, I think they have got a USB connection, but this one still has the old audio jack. So we'll screw that into a case, which will give us the correct size. There's an adapter.
Take me, forsake me, and make me feel no pain at all.
And here I'm just connecting the extract fan to the correct header on the motherboard.
To look out, you need to look within. We talk and we scream and we always shout. Just can't put our inside out. But is it just me that feels this way? Or is everyone else the same? You give me the reason to live. It's all that I have to give.
Next we're going to install the SATA DVD drive. So just make sure it lines up at the front of the panel correctly as you tighten up the screws at the side.
You take me and shake me, awake me. Tears dry from my eyes. You take me, forsake me, and make me feel no pain at all.
And finally we can connect up the power supply. The 4 bolts at the back, 4 screws at the back even. Then we'll plug our main connector onto our motherboard and the secondary one. Next we'll connect the SATA data connection from the motherboard to the back of the SATA DVD drive. The power supply is a modular power supply, so you can select which cables you actually require to use, and any that you're not requiring you can omit from plugging in, which makes a tidier case with less cables. Right, next we'll connect up the cables for the power switch, the power LED and the hard drive activity LED. Unfortunately the power LED was powered from a Molex connector off the old power supply, and we don't have a Molex connection on this new power supply. So I'll connect up the switch and the hard disk activity LEDs, and later on I'll swap that cable out for another one. Next we're going to install the sound card, which is a RME HDSP 9652. This has been a superb sound card which has served me well for a number of years. It's still PCI, which is why I went for the motherboard that had PCI slots, but fantastic low latency, and 3 sets of ADATs, which gives me excellent input output into my digital desk. Next we'll try and tidy up the cables slightly. And we'll finish screwing in the power supply. Use some Velcro tie wraps for tying back some of the cables. That's a bit rough, but I'll tidy it up later. Next I'm going to install a 120mm intake fan into the case, where previously there was a hard drive blocking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some door sealant around the edges, just to give it a better seal. And then there is a void between the front panel and the inner panel of the case, so I'm going to use some other sealant to seal around that, so it is just drawing air in from outside rather than from the sides of the case and just recirculating the air. So I'm just marking the sheet metal on the inner with the holes for the fan. I'll just drill a hole. Just put a screw in to self-tap it. Make sure you hoover up all the swarf so it doesn't short out on any of the components. So the fan we're going to be using is a Noctua NF S12A, which is gives you pulse width modulation as well. And yeah, the Noctua fans are great. They're super quiet. So that's the draft excluder seal I'm using. I think it's for windows or doors. So as I say, I'm going to fill or line the inner void so it doesn't pull the air through from the sides of the case. So once this fan's fitted, this should give us excellent airflow from the front of the case through the CPU and out the extract fan at the back. So once the fan's screwed in position, you can connect the fan connection to the motherboard connection, and then that's me just connecting up the USB connections. And then you can see I've replaced the cable at the bottom for the power LED with another cable from another computer.